I extend to you a warm welcome to the grand launch of AgroSpectrum Asia. Tonight, we are gathered here to celebrate the remarkable expansion of AgroSpectrum India, the B2B multimedia platform of Active in the Asia Pacific region. It is a matter of immense joy for us that we are organizing this event on the World Environment Day, which reminds us of the importance of sustainability in agriculture. On this momentous occasion, we express our heartfelt gratitude to all the individuals and organizations that have supported us tirelessly. Your presence here today reflects a collective commitment towards fostering innovation, knowledge sharing, and collaboration within the agriculture sector. Together, we can make a significant impact in promoting sustainable agriculture and safeguarding our environment for future generations. Unfortunately, I regret to inform you that our esteemed chief guest, Shri Kailash Chaudhary, Minister of State, Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, who was scheduled to join us for this momentous occasion, has sent his sincere apologies and expressed his inability to be present with us tonight due to unforeseen circumstances. Nevertheless, the spirit of this event remains unwavering as he sends his best wishes for the success of AgroSpectrum Asia. So your enthusiasm and dedication to the agriculture sector and sustainability drive us forward, and we are confident that this evening's program will be more memorable and enriching experience for all. And now let us continue to celebrate the launch of AgroSpectrum Asia with a great enthusiasm and optimism. So without any further delay, may I request Dr. Milind Kokje, Chief Editor of AgroSpectrum Asia, on the dais to give his opening remarks. Dr. Kokje.
Thank you, Viva. Good evening, everybody. Our advisor of AgroSpectrum, respected Mai sir, publisher and managing editor Ravindra Boretkar, distinguished speakers in the panel discussion, and all the important personalities who have contributed a lot for the growth and development of the agri sector who have gathered here today. I'm glad to welcome you all for this function of launch of AgroSpectrum Asia when the entire world is observing World Environment Day today. As it is widely acknowledged, a key challenge for agriculture sector today is to feed increasing global population, but not at the cost of environmental degradation. So that brings us to the second part of the challenge, and that is to reduce environmental adverse impact. Agriculture can have significant impacts on the environment, and we are already observing that in the form of climate change. The agriculture alone is not responsible for that. Its contribution is significant. One of the major impact of climate change is again on agriculture and its production. As you all may be aware that climate coefficients for Chinese crops were estimated in Ricardian study of China in 2009, and then they were used to interpol potential climate damages across the continent. The model predicts small aggregate effects with 1.5 degrees Celsius warming, but damages of about 84 billion US dollars with 3 degrees centigrade Celsius warming. Situation is worsening further compared to the old study. When it comes to South Asia, it is estimated last year that 10 to 50% of the region's crop production could be lost by the end of the century due to global warming. While negative impacts are serious and can include pollution and degradation of soil, water and air, experts feel agriculture can also positively impact environment. For instance, by trapping greenhouse gases within crops and soils, or mitigating flood risk through the adoption of certain farming tactics. So what kind of such technologies are available for reducing the negative impact? When we planned this program, we decided to have a panel discussion, and when we started thinking about the topic along with Dr. Mai, the only topic we could think of was related to the mitigation of climate change impact. So what types of technologies and approaches are available to meet the challenge of climate change and what more will be available in future. As the AgroSpectrum is expanding its horizon from country to a region, that is from India to Asia, we thought it appropriate to think on the Asian level. And from all this thinking, the topic of today's panel discussion, climate resilient technologies and approaches in India, emerge. We have a distinguished panel of experts to discuss the topic. So without standing between you and the panelists and without wasting any more time, I request our host, Vibha, to turn to the next program. And before I move, I once again welcome you all for this grand function. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kokje, for the insightful welcome remarks. We will now proceed with the lighting of lamp. May I kindly invite esteemed dignitaries, Dr. C.D. Mai, Dr. Trilochan Mahapatra, Shri Pawan Agarwalji, Mr. Ravi Buratkar, and Mr. Milind Kokje to join us for this auspicious ceremony. Thank you. So with this, I request our esteemed dignitaries to take seats on the dais for the panel discussion on climate resilient agriculture, technologies and approaches in Asia. Now allow me to introduce our distinguished moderator of the panel, Dr. C.D. Mai. He needs no introduction, but still, he is a renowned among the agriculture scientific fraternity, as he has led various prominent positions in agriculture science and research field. Dr. Mai is advisor to AgroSpectrum and also vice president of National Academy of Agricultural Sciences. Dr. Mai also served as the chairman of Indian Agriculture Scientist Recruitment Board and also as Agriculture Commissioner in the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India. I will hand over the stage to Dr. Mai, who will lead the panel discussion. Dr. Mai.
Thank you, Vibha. First of all, let me welcome Dr. Mahapatra, Dr. Agrawal, Ravi Buratkar, and Milind Kokje, the editor of this AgroSpectrum. I think they have already told you about the background, that they want to extend this AgroSpectrum from Indian situation to now the region of Asia. And this is one of the excellent magazines where we get all information, both educational and also business. I think that is one purpose. That's why when we wanted to launch it, I think who could be a better person than we and Dr. Mahapatra, who has served ICAR as a Director General for 5 years. And why we have chosen climate change is mainly because I think it is during his time that we have released large number of varieties which are crop resilient to climate situations. Because I think maximum kind of research on the climate resilient in ICR was in the last 5 years. I think during his regime, and he has given a complete direction to this particular program. I think we are very lucky today that with my request, Dr. Mahapatra, you could come to this program. I am really grateful to you. We have actually, basically, Dr. Mahapatra is well known as a biotechnologist all over the world. But when he joined as ICAR as a Director General, I think the entire transformation, what I find in the 5 years, that what he has made in the planning of research of various institutes, probably he has visited out of those 102, maybe more than 80% of the institutes he has visited. All of them. And in this, that direction which after visiting he has given, I think is one of our crux problem where the entire change in the programs of institute has come. And that is what we are expecting, that climate change being one of the most top important topics of this country, I think we need a guidance. So I would request Dr. Mahapatra first to, why do we, Dr. Mahapatra, we think that the next few years, because we are experiencing right now those changes which are occurring in the climate and its impact on agriculture. What do you foresee? Are we able to really develop some kind of technologies where our farmers will be able to sustain the yields in spite of all those climate changes? I would like to just have your views on this.
Very good afternoon to everybody, and I think it's a great pleasure to be here, particularly when Dr. C.D. Mai organizing and being at the leadership position to guide a particular program. So it's a great pleasure to be here, and thank you very much, sir, for inviting me. And not only that, you have occupied very senior positions, but very importantly, you continue striving hard to improve the lot of the farming community. And at this age, the kind of drive that you have still to continue working for the farmers and in general arena of agriculture related activities, that is something which is having very profound effect on many of us who have been looking up to you as a role model, promoting science, implementing science for the cause of farming community. And also other dignitaries on the dais, Pawanji, and which we have been with whom I have been interacting on many occasions in the past. And also Mirinji and Raviji and all others who are present here, delegates and friends, many close friends in the industry. Always a pleasure to see all of you. And this very hall, I have come several times to interact, and it's always a pleasure. So today is no exception. So coming to the point of discussion, what Dr. Mai has actually indicated, let me be very specific, and place before you a few important points. Number one, that thanks and congratulations to AgroSpectrum going beyond the border of India to Asia, and launching of that So obviously when it goes to other countries, it would certainly enrich by way of the whole content, the knowledge that it provides by way of the rich content. And I believe that would benefit the stakeholders, industry, the farmer, the others who are engaged in the agriculture sphere. So congratulations for that. A lot more to, in fact, to learn from that, and a very well designed, lots of information in that. I was just scanning through this current one, and then so much to really learn. For me, I am no exception. So all your knowledge, whatever you have gained throughout life, falls short of that. When you look at such magazines, and you find so much more to learn actually. So in that sense, the way it is organized, so all that. So congratulations for all that, Milinji, particularly. So and going to other countries, certainly it would benefit many others. Certainly agriculture would remain and continue to remain as a core activity for the economy of the countries in this region, and more so, of course, India. The economy today in the National Academy of Agriculture Sciences, there was a discussion that how the overall economy of the country is being influenced and can get influenced because of developments in agriculture, and to what extent. So I will not go into that, but certainly agriculture remains the mainstay. More than 50% of people being dependent upon this, and all this data is there. I will not go into those kind of data to complicate what I'm trying to say before you, place before you. So agriculture remains important and would continue to remain important for people as a mean of a livelihood. The livelihood security of a vast majority of those who are in a rural setting. You don't have alternatives to move them, significant alternatives to move them out of agriculture. So as long as we are unable to do, and they would continue be doing engaged in agriculture. So obviously we have a big responsibility. That small and marginal land holding, again predominating 85% of people being small and marginal, farmers being small and marginal. So that's a big responsibility. And this responsibility becomes far more challenging in the context of climate change. So small land holding, a majority of the farmers having small land holding, and also fragmented land holding. So that fragmentation also puts serious constraints on application of technology. So given this scenario, that how do we actually deal with this? You have seen that how the climate change in recent years is impacting agriculture. So carbon dioxide is increasing, the temperature is rising, data is there, the carbon dioxide concentration going beyond 420 ppm. And that again 50% more than the pre-industrial era. So that data is there with all of us, as it is there in public domain. And so also the temperature, the way it is rising during past decades, a few decades, how it has almost doubled. The rate of rise per decade has almost doubled as it was during starting point of the industrial revolution, post-industrial revolution, so fast industrial revolution. So I believe that given all these scenarios, so our job, public, private, and everybody who deals with agriculture is very, very challenging. And more so because we are dealing with a very vulnerable class of people, having very little resource available with them. So how do we really deal with them? Farmers have been quite intelligent, and they have been dealing with this situation and though their economic condition remains in a very bad state, but still they have been trying to manage and survive these kind of vagaries of the weather, for years. So coming to the very specific point that Dr. Mai mentioned, that how we have been trying to address these, negative impacts of climate change. We always talk about adaptation and mitigation measures that can help smallholder farming in a big way. What all mitigation measures we can have or adaptation measures we can have in place so that the impacts are minimized, and agriculture does not contribute as much to climate change, because greenhouse gas emissions do happen from agriculture fields, rice, other animal system and all that. The data is there, I'll not go into those. So given that agriculture contributes to climate change by way of greenhouse gas emission, and agriculture also suffers from climate change, so we have to really take both adaptive and mitigation measures and put those in place. So, so by way of technology in the form of varieties, we tried our best, and I believe a long way to go. Out of 1,300, 1,400 odd varieties we developed during past 5-6 years, almost 1,200 of them had some or other form of climate resilience traits. So whether it is flooding or drought or temperature and all that. So delayed monsoon. So the maturity duration has been manipulated for specific situations, and technology has been used. The genomics assisted breeding has been extensively used to develop more than 100 varieties, where the genes have been pulled from different donors and placed them, aggregated them together in one background. So that could be possible, and they were all complex traits, and that could be possible because of the technology, which is genome assisted breeding technology, which is available. So how do we actually implement this further? So using these varieties and also private sector bred varieties, there some of them included here in this total number which I am talking about. So mainstreaming these varieties after further testing in different adaptation regions and different ecologies is essential to actually give the full advantage of those to farmers. Some of them do work, some of them do not work. So there is a need to really test these further in different zones for their adaptation. So that is being done, and I believe there is more to do, and partnership is very, very important in this context. So one is mainstreaming climate resilient varieties developed by private or public sector, and taking to the end users as much as possible, and in a big way. The seed system for such varieties, because what happens that the way the weather changes, we don't have very long-term predictions to plan it out properly, because seed system planning doesn't happen overnight. So it takes time. So the seed rolling plan which we prepare 3 years in advance, so you don't really take into account all the changes which are going to happen with regard to weather parameters. So that is where we need to really build our other platforms. For instance, we have vulnerability maps, and those vulnerability maps are based on the available parameter with regard to weather conditions. We don't have that weather stations available, adequate weather stations available to have precise vulnerability maps at the block level, for instance, to be prepared. So this is where we need to really intervene further, so that we have proper vulnerability maps extended to the block level available, so that our planning and implementation becomes far more precise. And similarly, the contingency plans which are there prepared they need to be really real time. So such real-time contingency planning is yet to really evolve and to be put in place. So when both are there, then one can really plan how to really take these varieties and other technologies to the field. But that's not really, again, enough. The wheat production, which we thought would be impacted in a big way in India because of last year's problems and this year's problems again, the weather, the rainfall that happened, and all that. But the estimate suggests that probably will not be ending up with that kind of negative impact with regard to wheat production. Estimate says that we might cross even 110 million tons of wheat production this year even. 112 million tons even might be surpassed. So those estimates are there, and procurement suggests probably will be doing much better than what was the scenario last year. And how come this happened? Two things. One, that we could sow majority of the areas, we could sow wheat in right time. And then some of the varieties, rather many of those varieties which are used, they have certain degree of tolerance to varying temperatures. And we have seen experimentally. So such varieties which are coming now need to be really mainstreamed. And similarly with regard to rice, and particularly the submergence tolerance. So technology in the form of varieties is there, need to be mainstreamed. But that's not really enough, as I was telling, that the farmers do not know what to really use and how to use. The farmers' capacities are required to be really built. And how do we really partner, and how do we really use technology there? The precision agriculture technologies to be implemented in farmers' field scenario, that's a very big challenge. A small land holding again doesn't allow application of all the modern tools and precision agriculture technologies, including the sensors and then sensor-based applications, or even automation for precision agriculture to operate appropriately. And that requires partnership, and that requires capacity building. And the entrepreneurship need to be really built there so that the youngsters, and they could be actually supported by the big industries, and industry can operate through young entrepreneurs, and there could be a kind of value chain established in the process. So this is where we need to really delve deeper and work more, because the farmers are not able to implement all these due to various reasons. One, the capacity is lacking, the knowledge and information system is not there, and the extension machinery is not able to deliver. The current extension machinery, existing extension machinery is not able to deliver due to various reasons. I'll not go into those details, but there is scope for private investment in this. There are a few examples of private investment happening here and there, but large-scale investment is required, to promote climate-resilient agriculture. The climate-resilient village system, which was actually put in place as examples, that is being replicated, with World Bank funding in, say, Maharashtra. And but then, there are only limited kind of efforts in some states. The pan-India activity has not really happened. The government support, the private engagement is essential for technology to be mainstreamed, and the farmers getting exposed and adequately supported by a system across India, and taking that information to other countries, because other countries are also equally affected by the climate change. So that again a challenge. And through AgroSpectrum, I believe there is opportunity to promote these ideas. And certainly when production increases, there will be challenge of processing, value addition, and marketing and value chains. And certainly that aspect would be dealt by Pawanji and others. that would be a bigger challenge. But enhancing productivity and production by way of mainstreaming varieties and other technologies would remain very critical, and where partnership would be important, entrepreneurship would be important, and I'm sure engagement of all of us should be very critical. So welcome, welcome, Dr. Dalwai, and always he is there, and certainly the gathering would gain from your expertise and experience. But what I was trying to say, and Dr. Mai and I should finish now. You have many experts now. So Dr. Mai, I believe my experience and during 5-6 years of ICR, at the as the DG, tells me that any single organization alone will not be able to address this big challenge of climate change in this country. And that is a very big challenge, and I don't think a single organization and working in isolation would be able to address this, or a single private company trying to really solve this problem. They might address in patches here and there, may have some examples of success, but across India, in varied agroclimatic zones and the varied economic kind of situations with regard to the farming community, quite varied situations existing in this country, will not be able to really address. Even the private companies, they may not be able to address. So together we should be able to really address. But how do we really plan it together? So that is the big challenge, and there we need to really have greater interfacing and greater amount of deliberations to plan it out. And that's what I would suggest at this point in time. And I would stop with this statement that partnership alone can lead us in the direction of addressing the negative impacts of climate change, both mitigation. I didn't touch upon many points. For instance, we say conservation agriculture. How do we promote it? Conservation agriculture is not getting that kind of support. Can we actually make it part of the subsidy system? Or for that matter, the way we say that the ecological benefits that it provides, can a conservation agricultural platform be mainstreamed there and supported there, and then farmers get benefit, the environment gets benefit, the ecology gets promoted and strengthened, and ecosystem services are actually taken advantage of. So how it is to be done? There is a need to really have more deliberation on this. Rise through conservation agriculture practices, we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and there are other positives. I'll not go into those details. But then the rate at which it is growing in the country, we have been trying for several years, but the area under conservation agriculture is not that much. And similarly, there are other practices which strengthen ecosystem services, and how do we really promote those? And together we can really do, and reduce the impact of climate change, at the same time reduce contribution of agriculture to climate change. So with these words, so I stop here, and thank you very much for inviting me. And I'm sure modern tools, gene editing, and I can go on adding what should be done, and private companies have a big stay there. I'm sure colleagues who are here, we have gene editing, we say we have regulation, but don't really get advantage of this because of the kind of IP issues there. So there's an issue to really deliberate, and the country to take advantage of technology which is available globally, we need to really again join hands. How the IP encumbrances are addressed, in case of gene editing, so that it is, taken to the field. And similarly, GM. What should be the policy implication? We had some intervention. The government did some, positive, steps, and they did enable. But then some of us, our colleagues, are not really very happy with that. And how do we really educate public and scientists and adequately so that we move forward? But things are not really moved, and it got stuck. So how do we really address this? This is a very big challenge. I have seen this from close quarters. The positive attitude of government, the scientists supporting this, and still we have not been able to really move forward. So that remains a big challenge. So for climate resilience, use of such technologies is important. And certain situations it is essential. And unless we have right kind of policy intervention there, we will not be able to really address those challenging, complicated problems of climate resilience as we go along. So when we say, population growth and then all other negatives and that I cited, so how do you address in long run? So let's join hands. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Sir,
To
before
Dr. Mahapatra, I think he has set the ball rolling.
Sir, before
And
yeah.
probably you all know what he has said. Last year there was a report in American Journal that our wheat yield will be reduced by 8 million tons. And I am happy Dr. Mahapatra knows now, he has already referred to that. It has not gone that way. That means already whatever we are done research and gone in the field, I think our wheat yield remains same. This year also I think we are expecting 110 million tons. That is what the estimate. So sometimes people ask me, is it true that there is a climate change? Because our yields are increasing every year. I said, no, there is already effect. And those effects at the URA pan-India level, what he has used word, may not be seen. But at individual farmers level, there are lots of changes which are occurring. And they are all suffering because of that. Because I am from Maharashtra, these are all grapes, oranges, all vegetables, everything because of only rainfall, untimely rainfall, storms has really spoiled the entire income of farmers this year. This happens. So maybe it is not possible in wheat and rice where we have already very good resilient varieties, but I think it requires in every practically all those 54 crops which we are researching. So Dr. Mahapatra, we are really very, very, very grateful.
So before we let you go, I would request Mr. Ravi Boratkar to felicitate you with a bouquet and a memento.
Thank you, Dr. Mahapatra, once more again. Thank you. We have another stalwart now, Ashok Dalwai, who has joined us. And I think he doesn't need basically any introduction. I am only very happy about Ashok Dalwai that whenever we call him for a very small things, he will be available. Dr. Dalwai, I am really grateful to you. He has been to our Nagpur AgroVision program also. You have come and advised. Whatever, you see, whatever information he has, he is always keen that it should be passed on to people. I think this is very important. And today, our launching program, we kept deliberately about climate change. Because now this is the topic which, and you have written lots of things on doubling of farmers' income. Now we say that we have already actually the income of the farmers has certainly increased. May not be double, but it has increased. Over a period of time, we see that there are changes. Now we only foresee that in future, because of this climate effect, farmers are suffering at their farm level. So we would like to know from you, how do we really now mitigate this situation? See, at national level, you may not see what is happening it. But at the local level, their impacts are very much seen. How that, what's your idea that you could tell us that it could be reduced at that level? That is, I think, more important.
You want me to share from here? Or
You can,
you want me to answer this particular question?
yeah, you can otherwise also say.
Yeah, depending upon that, I wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then I can tell from there. Then
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. Yeah, since you already asked me a question, I'm not getting very formal, so I'll just start my response. First, let me thank you and congratulate you for releasing this new extension of the AgroSpectrum Asia. So you are taking this beyond the borders of India, and Asia experiences similar agroclimatic zone with, of course, variations. So it's good to share the best practices across the continent, and today, as we know, the entire globe is a village, and therefore we should be sharing best practices. Therefore, I would like to congratulate you and wish you the very best. And to all friends here, let's wish one another a happy World Environment Day. I don't know what prefix we should be using for this World Environment Day, because we know that it is not a happy day. The situation at which we all are on this 5th June 2023 is not really an edifying day with respect to the environment. Nevertheless, it's a day dedicated to environment, to remind all of us that we should be resolving at our individual level and at the collective level to make our humble contributions to revive, rejuvenate the environment, and then sustain it and nurture it at an appropriate level. So when you say revive and rejuvenate, what does it mean? There has to be a benchmark. Is it 1750 AD, the year when the modern era commences in terms of the historical milestones? Or should we be still going back? The best, of course, which may not be reachable, but still we should be having a vision to always aim at the best. And the best is to look back at those prehistoric times and say that can we recreate that particular ecology. The reason is that if we take our galaxy, the Milky Way, of the 4,200 planets that we have, as far as we know today, Earth is the only planet where there is life. And life is here because the ambience was so conducive for origin of life and its evolution to the highest species, the Homo sapiens. And then this earth is so located vis-a-vis the sun, the source of energy, without which we can't have life, that it is neither too close to it, lest we get ourselves burnt, not too far away, lest we suffer from cold. We are placed at a very optimal distance from the sun. And that's how there was scope for origin of life. So I think the commitment on a day like this has to be that we nurture back life on earth. When I say life, the ecosystem on earth, to a situation where, if need be, there can be always another origin of life. That should be our vision. Now, second point that I would like to share is, yes, there has been civilizational evolutions, particularly since 12,000 years, when the hunter-gatherer settled down with husbanding agriculture, consisting of crop husbandry and animal husbandry. And we have moved through centuries and millennia. But organized science is about 1,000 years old, or rather around 700 years old. Organized science. There has been science even before that. But organized science, as we understand today, in the modern sense that we create a hypothesis, we have an objective, then we have a research methodology, we prove the hypothesis or disprove the hypothesis. That kind of organized science is only around 700 to 800 years old. But then the rapid pace at which the outcomes of science have changed their life is around 250 years old. We had the principles realized before that, but science which could be converted into technology and impact mankind directly is about 250 years old. And that aligns with the modern era, and that aligns with the Industrial Revolution, where the pace of utilizing the fossil resources has accelerated so much so that there is man-induced climate change on Earth. I think that's the point. So, if there is a climate change because of the production matrix that we all have adhered to over the last 250 years, the question that we can ask ourselves on this day is, has mankind solved the production challenges? I think that's the question. Has mankind solved the production challenges? Mankind believes that he has solved the production challenges because we see cataclysmic changes in the output of agriculture, cataclysmic changes in the industrial goods and services, and so much of ability to bear the load of 7.8 billion people on Earth, along with other life forms. But then, have we really solved the problems of production? If we have solved the problems of production, then we should not be having greenhouse gas emissions. We should not be having compromise of the soil quality. We should not be having the groundwater table going down. We should not be having the toxic environment that we are facing, which only goes to show that apparently we have solved the problems of production, but actually we have got into a vicious cycle where our deceleration is beginning. To answer the particular question that how India has achieved 110 million tons of wheat when climate change is occurring, and therefore doubting whether there is really a climate change, we should look at what has happened to the marginal rate of returns. Thanks to the increasing compromise of soil, water, and other production environments, the marginal rate of returns are decreasing in the sense that we are now required to add more hardware in terms of water, in terms of fertilizers, And therefore, we see the increasing cost of production. That you will agree as an agriculture economist. So, we should not be just looking at output at any cost. That is the negative impact of green revolution or the modern technology practice in India and elsewhere. That we have looked at output at any cost. That means without reference to the cost of production. We have also looked at production without reference to ecology. That means what happens to sustainability in the long run are not looked at. And the negative impact of all that is not really visible directly to us because we have failed to understand that ecosystem is organically linked. That the ecosystem or ecology consists of several components, and each component is linked organically to the next, which means that if soil is compromised, water gets compromised. If soil and water get compromised, production gets compromised. If production gets compromised, human health gets compromised. If human health gets compromised, livestock health gets compromised. It goes on. Therefore, when we want to talk about health and well-being as one of the important sustainable development goals, we should be looking at ecosystem, not compartmentalized solutions to problems. And therefore, I want to place before you on this day that we have not really solved the problem of production. Today, the need is to look for a new science and technology, or reorienting the science and technology that will give us a new equation for production, which will be based not on non-renewable fossil resources, but on renewable and bioresources. And not that just because we shift to bioresources, we'll have reduction in greenhouse gases. No. After all, agriculture also contributes 14% of the total greenhouse gas emission on Earth. Paddy alone contributes the major share of that, and thereafter the livestock comes in. Therefore, while we shift from the fossil resources to the bioresources which are renewable, we also will require a new bioprocessing technology, a new bioengineering process, such that we are able to contain the emission of greenhouse gases. And simultaneously, we will look not at compartmentalized solutions, but as an organically holistic solution. So I will leave it at that for want of time. And I'll answer that question and then depart. To my chair, of course. That you are saying, yes, at the macro level, we don't see the issue, as we keep seeing that over the last, for example, since 2014, we have gone up from 264 million tons to 309 million tons of food grains, from 264 million tons of horticultural output to 335 million tons. And our overall agri-produce in the country has gone from 1.2 billion tons to nearly 1.3 billion tons, putting India in the top bracket in most of the agri-sector, or produce sector. But at the micro level, there are issues. Even at the micro level, before coming to the individual farmers, if you look at the sectoral comparison, you will find that there are wide discrepancies. Let's take, for example, the rain-fed regions and the irrigated belts of our country. Rain-fed regions that account for 51% of the net cultivated area. The productivity in rain-fed areas is 1.1 tons per hectare, as against 3.3 tons in irrigated belts. The water productivity is likewise extremely wide in terms of the efficiency. But the number of people dependent on agriculture in rain-fed areas is very substantive. And likewise, if you start comparing state-wise productivity, you will find much to be desired. If Punjab farmer is reaping 5.2 tons of paddy per hectare, a Odisha farmer realizes just 2.7 tons per hectare. If Constitution is talking about equitability, welfare, is this welfare? Certainly not. Therefore, at the micro level, when you go at regional level, sub-regional level, you will find that there are discrepancies. The reason is research and development efforts have not been egalitarian in this country. R&D, which evolved as a reaction to the food deficiency in our country, has sustained itself only at that level to the neglect of the R&D in the rain-fed regions. And rain-fed regions include not just low rainfall areas, they also include high rainfall regions, like 2,500 millimeters in Assam, or even 4,000 millimeters in Cherrapunji, or the cold deserts. These are all rain-fed regions. We have not looked at required technology to harvest the genetic potential that is possible. So I think the first response should be to reorient and restructure R&D in such a manner that we are able to remove the stress that is there on the Indo-Gangetic plains. We are doing injustice to the farmers of Indo-Gangetic plains. We need to take off that lid of pressure and put it now horizontally spread it to the rain-fed regions and other states where we have low productivity. Therefore, we need to reorient and restructure entire national agriculture research system. And the second one, of course, if you go down to the farmers level, in our country, there is a direct correlation between the size of the land holding and the income. If farmers' income consists of an approximate 60% of farm income and 40% of non-farm income, as you go down the land holding size, the non-farm income increases to as high as 85%. That means farm income is just 15% in the case of all the marginal farmers who account for 65% of the land holdings, which means that farming is not viable. But he's still there. He has no choice. It's a default choice. So I think sustainability means it has to be very egalitarian. We need a new science, new technology, a new business management approach. So I would say that on this day of the World Environment Day, we must wear a new hat. These are all known problems, but I would only suggest that all of us keep advocating for a new approach. All of us talk of the last man, Antyodaya. I think that's what government is also committed to, the last man. And farmers are one of the last class of people. As a class, they're one of the last class of people. If you compare the income in 1983 and 2020s, the farmer's average income is lower than an industrial worker. Whereas in 1983, farmer was number 1, industrial worker was number 2, landless agricultural labor was number 3. Today, the farmer has slipped from that number 1 between these 3 classes. All 3 are poor people only, nothing great. But within that poverty bracket, farmer has slipped. And that is not a good sign because farmer has got asset called land. The other 2 have no assets. They have no assets, so no income is being generated adequately. But farmers who own assets, if they are not able to generate income, there's something seriously wrong with our agriculture production system, our agriculture's value chain system. So I would end here by saying that there's so much to do, and that's a good thing in a way because it gives work to mankind. Otherwise, man can think production problem is sorted out, we can start resting. And that could be the most barren life that we can all have. It's good that nature keeps throwing up problems, society keeps throwing up problems. We take those problems as challenges and engage ourselves at the mental level, at the intellectual level, at the societal level, at the philosophic level, and see how we can actually create a new world. So thank you very much, and see you again.
Thank you, Dr. Dalwai. Kindly give big hand to Mr. Ashok Dalwai. I think it was very enlightening because once we come at micro level, then I think there is wonderful analysis which has been done. Now we have Mr. Pawan Agrawal. He is basically he was with Food Safety Standards Authority of India, and he did lot of job in the setting the regulations in motion that time. I think that has improved the value chain quite greatly. Mr. Agrawal is today with Food Futures Foundation and also he has secretly published a report on food vision of 2030, which has dealt with climate issues also in his report. So I would request Pawanji, if you could tell what exactly in that secret report you have said something.
Very good evening, friends. Like my distinguished predecessor and senior colleague, Mr. Dalwai, I'll not take you through millenniums of the past life, but I'll want to see into the future, And before I do that, let me congratulate Active, for this wonderful initiative of taking AgroSpectrum to Asia. I have immensely benefited from your publications. All my education in FSSA happened through your magazine. And in fact, Active, their group was the first one that came out with a coffee table book on Food Safety Authority when we completed 10 years of existence of the food safety law. So long association with your organization, and I'm very proud of this association. In fact, this publication that you referred to, the chief editor of that was Mr. Milind. Okay. So I have nothing to add, that it has the same quality and expense that all their publications have, and I'm sure the Asia Pacific will immensely benefit from this. This is quite interesting that normally when I went to any gathering like this, a lot of people knew me. And here I am, I don't know anybody except some people here. So this, let me be a little provocative, and which I'm generally known to be. I'm not disrespecting anybody by making those remarks, but about 2 years ago, I think the entire world was in the grip of something called food systems. There was a UN Food System Summit that was organized, and our colleague had also done a report on that on behalf of World Food Program. So at that stage, for almost 2 years, the entire world and India was somewhat less connected with the summit itself. And this summit was somewhat different because its activities started almost 18 months before the actual summit. And there were far more, intense deliberations in run-up to the summit than in the actual summit itself. And that is where, we were interacting with a lot of experts around the world. And one of the main issues was that we are looking at food systems in silos. And when I'm standing here before you, I feel that we still are looking at food system in silos. I think when we look at issues of food system, it is not farm to fork. It has to begin with the fork or with the plate. What people should eat or want to eat, and then track it backwards to the farms. That is what should be produced by our farmers. Because anything that you produce, if it is not consumed, if there is no consumer for it, obviously farmers will not get remunerative prices. It is common sense. And therefore we need to see how can we bring all parts of the agriculture system onto the single platform. Or to that extent, my humble request is that you could consider bringing out another publication or converge all these publications into something that deal with food systems, because otherwise we continue to look at these issues in silos. And it is with this intent that post-retirement we created India's first social enterprise that looks at food system change, people-centric food system change. And obviously much of our work is in a very difficult area, and that area is around consumption. We are not so much concerned about production, not that we are not looking at production side, but much of the foundation's work deliberately is an area around consumption. Today itself, on the occasion of World Environment Day, and happy World Environment Day to all of you, I would deliberately add the word happy, because we have made a very good and interesting beginning, you know, around climate change. And that is an initiative of my school climate club campaign that we have initiated through the foundation today in the afternoon. The idea is that unless we educate the people, and people can be educated through the children, you know, about this big issue of climate change that is all facing the world, and unless people begin to take action, the climate action, you know, I think we are not going to be happy. But the happy thing is that we successfully launched this campaign, wherein we got on the very first day support of UNEP and WWF, which have large school programs in the country to work on the My School Climate Club. And that is around sensitization of our children and through our children to the people at large around impact of climate change and what actions they can individually take to address those actions. So that is one part of the whole thing about the foundation that I was referring to. But in course of those deliberations, a few keywords that keep emerging. One was that you know, globally 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions come from agri-food sector. No, if globally, I do not know what the statistics is, you know, I really do not know. When Dr. Mahapatra mentioned that agriculture in India does not contribute very much to greenhouse gas emissions. So we need to figure out what the real situation is, but we cannot obviously be in denial mode. You know, as far as methane is concerned, we all know that livestock sector is a big emitter of methane, and so is rice cultivation. The nature of rice cultivation we practice in India, and I think even if we have not signed the methane pledge so far, but taking some concrete action in that direction would be in the right spirit, because otherwise if there's pressure on us at some point in time, we may have to sign it, and then we cannot show the world that we are ready for it. So I think there is it is important for us to begin to take action and not remain in denial mode that agri-food sector does not cause any greenhouse gas emissions. That is one point I would like to make. The second point is, you know, he also referred to climate resilient varieties. I do not know very much about agriculture. I have not worked in this sector, but you know, I've been following, because of my work in FSSAI, the fortification space and biofortified crops. And my own sense is that even though a lot of work has been done in biofortified crops, but its adoption by consumers has been somewhat very poor. So I don't think we have any significant you know, figures of biofortified varieties that are available. I really do not have sense of climate resilient you know, crops that is there, what is the production, whether people are adopting it or not, etc. So it is going to be a big challenge. A bigger challenge is going to be, you know, recently in course of a small consulting, I was interacting with farmers, small tea producers from Assam and Darjeeling Hills, and you know, there they face a peculiar problem. You know, in fact, a farmer after farmer, they mentioned about climate change, and I was so surprised. I thought I only read it in newspapers. It is discussed in in these COP meetings. But when farmer after farmer said that this is the biggest challenge they are facing, I thought that this must be real. You know, they are really facing these problems, and then that is why they are talking about it. And bigger problem is that even if we want to change their production to climate resilient plantations, it will take 8-10 years for the new variety to be planted and that giving produce. So we are up in for a big problem. In fact, day 4 yesterday, I was discussing this issue with Additional Secretary Commerce, and he says that Sir, please find out what is the solution to this problem. You know, when productions are increasing in plantation sector, where climate resilient, even if we have climate resilient varieties, we can't do it because of the long cycle that will be, required for that. So yes, though this is a real challenge, and we need to be ready to face it. But looking at from the food systems perspective, I would strongly appeal that rather than merely talking about climate resilient agriculture, we should look at nutrition sensitive climate resilient agriculture. Look at what people want to eat and people should be eating, because as we all realize that chronic diseases, non-communicable diseases, India becoming the diabetic capital of the world, etc., and immunity, gluten issues. So they're all, we can't ignore them anymore. I think they're becoming big public health issues, and therefore our crop production patterns have to basically align with what people want. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Agrawal. We have amongst us Smita Shirohi ji. She was agriculture attaché in our embassy in Belgium, and she has, I think, quite vast experience, particularly of Europe. In a small country like Belgium, I would like to know what is those in Europe they are doing about climate change, or whatever your experience about that. Yeah. You can sit here also and comfortably.
Thank you, sir. I don't know whether after two distinguished speakers, I will be able to add any value or not. In fact, I was wondering why I am invited at all once we have such distinguished panelists here. Not really. In fact, sir, maybe I have one another introduction where I am an ICR scientist, and I have been there. I'm still an ICR scientist, and I was there on deputation to Brussels, and now I'm handling I'm G20 as joint secretary. Yeah. So I think sir has raised a question about what is it that they're doing in Europe. Europe is, especially during the recent times, after the von der Leyen commission came into, when she's heading this as a president, there is a lot of emphasis on Green Deal. You may have heard about Green Deal, where there is a lot of pressure from the civil society also, and from the parliament side, and the European Commission, where everything they want to center around is Green Deal. And sometimes to the extent that it is also creating a lot of non-tariff barriers for countries, for developing countries like India. So as a consumer staying in Brussels, it was really very nice because you're very sure the food which is coming is free from pesticides. But when we look from the perspective of whether it is creating any kind of trade barriers, then of course that is something which is worrisome for us. How they are doing things differently, it makes a lot of the level of development which they are in and the level of development which we are in. That is something which is also one of the factors which is we are not able to catch up to that level. Sir has mentioned about that so much of our agriculture sector is still under rain-fed conditions. So in farm to fork strategy, what they are trying to do is they are trying to boil down everything, and adaptation is not only a concern from their side, mitigation is a big concern. So we don't want to, even in India, I would like to just mention that so long we have been talking about the agriculture sector should only be adapting to agriculture, to climate change, and we should not be talking about mitigation. We should not be talking about mitigation as far as when we say that we are not in a position to take any kind of commitments at the international forum, given the level of development we are in. But at the same time, certainly we should not be in the denial mode. We should also remember the kind of mitigation strategies. There are so many co-benefits of mitigation strategies for the production. For instance, I have worked in a dairy institute for a very, very long time. I can draw upon some examples from there. Livestock is considered to be one of the major producers of greenhouse gas emissions through enteric fermentation, and methane emissions are an outcome of enteric fermentation. Now, if you try to reduce methane emissions from enteric fermentation, the outcome is that you improve the rumen fermentation efficiency, and then the productivity goes up. So I don't know that why so far we have been so watchful, or we don't want to acknowledge that mitigation is something which is important in agriculture sector. It can have a lot of co-benefits for adaptation of the farmers and also increase the productivity. Fortunately, since we are talking about these days, we are talking about G20 in a big way, and also India has been partner in invited country in G7. There you will find that in the climate action statement, which has been released by the G7, which is Hiroshima Climate Action Statement, and India is a party to it, we have not shied away from acknowledging that adaptation and mitigation both are very important for agriculture sector and for achieving food security and nutrition for all. So there is a definite shift. Ministry of Agriculture is also very proactive in trying to see that how we can generate carbon credits for our farmers, how the farmers can be linked to the carbon, although we do not have, the markets for carbon credit are just voluntary, but despite of that, there is an effort on that front. The question which was to me was basically what is done in Europe. So what they're doing is they have a common action, common agricultural plan, which is there. And CAP lays lot of emphasis, it gives lot of incentives to the farmers. There is lot which the farmers gain from this CAP through the budgetary support, but at the same time, that comes with certain set of responsibilities. Unlike in India, where the farming community, they talk about the benefits which they want from the government, the subsidies which they want from the government, but they do not want that they should shoulder any responsibility, such as even for that matter when you talk about stubble burning. So, and if there are any kind of, I mean, I don't want to go into the contentious issues, but the point is that there is responsibility, there is benefit, but comes with responsibilities. So that is one thing which is very categorically stated there. Then another aspect which I find what they're doing about climate, how to deal with climate change is, they have very long-term kind of plan how to phase out pesticides. Although as an agricultural attaché, agricultural counselor there, I feel that it is not only about the climate concerns or the public health concerns. It has also a lot to do with lobbying of agrochemical industries, where one molecule, a new molecule comes, so the old molecule has to be phased out. So it's not only about people and planet, it is about profit. But at the same time, there is a very systematic way in which these molecules, in which they are working on the pesticides reduction. And also they are trying to come up with new and newer regulations on this. For instance, a recent regulation which is very, very talked about is the deforestation regulation of EU, where they say that if a product which is being produced as a result of deforestation, then they are not going to accept those products in the European markets. So there is a lot of discussion on that why, when, where, and there are a lot of countries like Brazil, Indonesia, etc., who have raised concerns on this kind of a regulation. But what I find lacking is that if we eventually want to tap the international market for agricultural exports, I feel that we are very, very less prepared. And that is something we haven't seen. Our systems are not geared up to see that 5 years hence what, 10 years hence what. Whereas most other countries, they are very systematically working towards that. They're trying to understand the regulations and the rules in the international markets, whichever important international markets are there, just trying to say that, okay, 5 years hence, this kind of regulation is going to come in X country, so how should we be prepared today? whereas for us, it is a very knee-jerk kind of a reaction. The regulation comes, our commodities are, they start facing export barriers, and then we suddenly wake up and we say, oh, well, we must do something about it. So that is where I feel we have to have a very, very systematic kind of approach. And it is not, and this approach cannot come from the government itself. For this approach, we need the scientific community, we need the farmer producers organization. The entire chain has to be sensitized in such a way. The export promotion councils are very important in this. Government is of course there as a regulator, the government is of course very important, but from top to bottom, everything, every point is so relevant so that we can actually understand that what is going to come through. Now in this, even in this deforestation regulation, we are not going to be affected much by deforestation regulation, but as a part of the European Green Deal, since they have, the commitment is to bring down the use of pesticides by 30% by 2030. And in that process, a lot of these active chemical substances are knocked off from the EU shelves. And that is going to have lot of effect on the way how we are going to align our exports. Plus, one more thing which I find, I don't know whether it is relevant for the audience here or not. What I find is that it is not that overnight EU knocks down the active substances from its shelves. There is a whole process. And in that process, there is a public consultation. As an agricultural counselor there, so many times I have tried to reach out to my scientists here in ICR system and state agriculture universities and everywhere to say that, see, these are the public consultations. Please come up with empirical evidence to support or say that, yeah, this is correct, we should knock it down or we should not knock it down, at least give your country perspective. But we have never got any answer. That's really, really very unfortunate. We have never got any answer from any quarters. And that is what is important. I mean, if we can get up and say, see, we are a tropical country, and 5 years down the line, if our research says, or 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, we are going to be affected by such kind of pests because of climate change. And so we will need such and such pesticides, or we'll need this kind of molecules to be active. Then we can also make a case for our exports. This is where we feel that we have to bring up everybody together. And now I will not say much about this, and that's all. Thank you from my side.
Thank you, Smitaji. I think in this very short launching program and on the Environment Day, we thought that at least instead of taking only launching alone, why not we couple it with some knowledge? And I'm sure that with all these speakers, we have gained something on this particular day. So I am really grateful to all of them. Dr. Mahapatra, Dr. Dalwai, Smitaji, Pawan Agrawal ji, kindly give big hands to them. And now it's time to launch our issue. I think Vibha, you are doing that? Yeah. Please. Dr. Acharya is one of the ex-director of ICR Institute.
While standing,
2 minutes.
Okay, no, 2 minutes नहीं थोड़ा सा बोलना पड़ेगा. Thank you very much, Dr. Mai. Since you have invited me, I have to speak. So, fortunately or unfortunately, I am the only person who is a soil scientist. When we talk of the, increase in production at cost of what? Natural stress on the natural resources. Very well said by Agarwal ji, Dr. Samita ji. See, agriculture does contribute towards climate change. I give the example. The nitrogen use efficiency is hardly 30 to 40%. So where does other go? It pollutes the environment. Globally, you see, we are losing 72,000 billion dollars, not rupees, dollars, globally every year. And the nitrogen cycle is much more disturbed than the carbon cycle. This has much higher, 300 times higher potential to generate the greenhouse gases. This has higher potential. Number two, Dr. Mai, you were referring of the increase in production, Dr. Mahapatra. I am a person who has come from a different stream. Very well said by Dr. Dalbai. Rain-fed agriculture, very important. Now, the mitigation part, for example, when 30 to 40% of nitrogen use efficiency there, you don't flood the plot with the flood irrigation. Go for drip irrigation. Immediately the nitrogen use efficiency increase to 90%. This is the way we can meet. So the cost of production, Dr. Mai, we used to get 19 kg of grain per kg of the nutrient spent, applied in 70 or 71. Now we are getting 2.6 kg per kg of the nutrient applied. The farmers are applying. We used to apply 54 kg of the nutrients to get a 2 ton per hectare of yield in 70s. Now to get the same yield we are applying 5 times more. That instead of 54 kg, we are applying 280 kg of the nutrients to get the same yield. So, but cost of production has increased tremendously, but at the cost of natural resources. Soil is degraded, water is contaminated, and unfortunately we talk in this country of the organic farming. Can we feed this nation with organic farm or zero budget natural farming? It's ridiculous to talk such things,
Okay, thank you, Dr. Acharya, for your
one more
wonderful-
point. I come
because
from
we have
Himachal,
to launch
come from
and
Himachal Pradesh.
ah.
This year there was no fruit setting.
There was no
No fruit setting. At the time of flowering, there was a rain.
problem.
When the fruit setting was there was a hailstorm. So these are the issues which we must discuss.
You have
Otherwise,
really.
goody things.
I said that
always they go like this.
we, in a very short period, we could not cover many things.
Yeah.
But I am thankful that you have brought soil as a factor in the entire situation.
Yes.
Thank you
Soil
once
and
again.
water
Kindly
also
give big
both.
hands to Dr.
Thank you
Acharya.
very much.
Thank you, Dr. Acharya. I thank you, Dr. Mai, and esteemed panelists for engaging us in insightful panel discussion. So now may I introduce Mr. Ravi Boratkar. He is a publisher and managing editor of AgroSpectrum, who will now give his address. So before he gives the address, may I take a moment to introduce him.
Yes.
So Mr. Ravi thank you, sir. So Mr. Baratkar is a managing director of Active, and he's the publisher of this renowned B2B magazine and communication portal such as BioSpectrum India, BioSpectrum Asia, New Food Spectrum, and AgroSpectrum. Mr. Baratkar has demonstrated his exceptional expertise in the industry, and furthermore, he is also a president of the AgroVision Foundation and Maharashtra Economic Development Council. So these are just a few of the numerous prominent positions that he holds, testifying to his exceptional contribution and influential presence in the realm of socio-economic development. So may I now request Mr. Baratkar for his address. Thank you.
Thank you, Vibha. Thank you, Dr. Sidibhai, for wonderfully moderating this session. And I must thank each of the panelists here, Dr. Ashok Dalwai, Dr. Smita Sarvahi, Sri Pawan Agrawalji, my colleague Milind, and Dr. Mahapatra, who was with us here. In fact, at this launch, having panel discussion on this topic was one way we thought, and also coinciding our AgroSpectrum Asia launch on the World Environment Day, was to just, further reinforce our commitment to the sustainable agriculture, to promote sustainable agriculture, and also to make agriculture sustainable for the farmers through our other efforts. Having said so, this AgroSpectrum India, we had launched just before the pandemic. And in the last couple of years, while working on this, while promoting this, when this platform emerged on the forefront of providing invaluable insights and analysis of the various sectors of agriculture and allied industry, we realized that agriculture in Asia, particularly as we know, agriculture still remains a very important sector for India, because it almost engages your 50% of the workforce. But having engaging 50% of the workforce, its contribution to the GDP per se, I think still needs to be revived. I think more economists and other people can add to it, but that is one area. And agriculture is not only important to India, but also in the Asia. Asia, which houses almost 59% of the world population, with just, I think, 34% of the land available, or the world land proportion, agriculture is and will be a very important sector. And particularly in this scenario, when India is marching towards a $5 trillion economy, agriculture also needs to transform. It's being transformed. There are various initiatives, various policies. But I think as a media, we thought here, there is a good space wherein, because if we really need to enhance the GDP of agriculture's contribution in GDP to India's this thing, so we need to also look beyond. We need to look at more export, better export, and that means not only more yield, but the quality yield, and also maybe, there has to be the adoption of alternate cropping pattern, modern technologies, modern practices. There are so many things, because in agriculture, as you are all the experts from agriculture field, you all know, as Dr. Mai just in the beginning said, that there is research going on 54 crops. But I think there are each crop, like, if you take a rice, or if you take any other sugar cane, each one has its huge ecosystem and economy. And it's very complex issues. Even you find recently there are many startups which are coming, they are also coming into agri sector. More startups are being registered in this agri sector. So we thought with so much, this agriculture itself such a big and complex topic, so much is going on, so much needs to be done, and there is a good need, that there has to be a good platform where there can be a proper exchange of information, good flow of information, what's happening around, what needs to be done here, what needs to be adopted, what are the results of what is being adopted in some parts or in some crops, some field. And also, we thought there can be a good interaction. This should give a more, facilitate more collaborations. So keeping all this thing in mind, also promoting good discussion, good opinions, analytical articles, then supporting it later on by maybe a better statistics, we thought we need to expand our scope from India to the Asia first, and maybe then to the larger continents. But so through website, a portal, we are initially, today we'll be doing a launch so that we can bring all the stakeholders together, and we try to promote the collaborations on various sectors on this platform. And here this will be updated on a day-to-day basis. We'll be sending emails, digital emails pushing every day, because as you may be aware that we have two more titles, like one is BioSpectrum and one is New Food Spectrum. One dedicated to life sciences and biotechnology, others on functional food, nutrition, dietary supplements. And Dr. Pawan Agrawal has given a very good suggestion now for us to add. So certainly your suggestion will be taken into consideration. If not a new publication, but new section can be started in that. So I'm really happy that it's a good occasion, on a good day, in a good company, we are launching this. So this will be a portal first, and maybe that our print edition will follow. And we also appeal to all the experts here that you can certainly send your suggestions, so that how can we improvise it further to make it more meaningful. See, ours is a B2B platform initially. We want to foster more, encourage more collaborations. We want to encourage more startups. We want to encourage different views. We want to encourage more sharing of good experiences, good practices, adoption of technologies, research. So I'm sure with a good team we have, and for this we have created a separate bureau based in Singapore, and we wish to expand our network to other APAC countries also, so that we can it can be more inclusive, and it will reflect Asia. I think with this now we will look for a formal launch, and may I request Dr. Mai and the panel to do the launch, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Deepti Barve. I'm Executive Editor of AgroSpectrum. I would like to inform you about various sections of our website. AgroSpectrum Asia, basically it's a B2B portal devoted especially for APAC region. And we are covering the countries such as Australia, China, Indonesia, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, New Zealand, Philippines, Singapore, Taiwan, and Cambodia. We are also covering Middle East countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Israel. And apart from this, we are covering global, we are trying to give global coverage. In that, we have included United Kingdom, Russia, Germany, Italy, France, Netherlands, and Spain. And also, as you all are aware, that North America is the biggest market for agricultural products and also latest technologies and innovations. For that, we are covering North America continent. In that, we have included countries such as USA, Canada, Mexico, and in South America, we have included Brazil. So AgroSpectrum Asia is basically focusing on agrochemical industry, then fisheries, especially shrimp farming, in the countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia. So we are trying to lay more focus on the business news related to this country and how that sector is emerging in this country. And also, in R&D section, that is the main tab of our, one of the main tab of our website, we are covering agri-genomics, which is a latest trend in agriculture. Then GM crops, new innovations and technologies, and digital technologies such as AI, big data science, and also cloud technology. And apart from this, AgroSpectrum Asia is emphasizing the news related to biofuel industry, and also gives information about the emerging markets such as agriculture carbon credit market in APAC region and also in India. And livestock sector is the main focus of the AgroSpectrum Asia. And we are getting really good response from the companies also. We have received expert article from the global companies such as Corteva AgriScience, then Evonik, and also from the Polytechnic Board Governor of Singapore. So this is what all about is AgroSpectrum Asia. You can scan the QR code printed on your badge so that you can directly access the website. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dipti. So before we close the event, may I request Mr. Ravi Buratkar to felicitate the panelists and the moderator with bouquets and mementos. Dr. Smita Sirohi. Late. Mr. Dalwai. Dr. C.D. Mai. Mr. Dalwai. Mr. Agarwal. Dr. C.D. Mai. So with this, we close the launching ceremony, and I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all of you for your presence, support, and active participation. So we'll now start with a networking event. Thank you for your time and patience. Thank you, everyone.